Welcome to Flourishing Flame, from burning out to burning bright with therapist and coach Leah Brown. Are you a people helper or caregiver, feeling overwhelmed, distant, cynical, and crispy around the edges? Join me to defeat burnout by learning how to manage stress and create deep connective relationships with others so that you can pursue your calling, providing light and warmth to those around you. Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Flame podcast. I'm your host, Leah Brown. I just had the most phenomenal experience this evening at a birthday party. My sister had a birthday party and invited friends of hers from different areas of her life and asked all of us to bring something to share that was meaningful to us and showing us a time that we crossed over a threshold in our own lives. And we did. It was amazing to be able to hear all these women, most of whom I had never met before, share things about our lives that were very meaningful and vulnerable. And in the midst of that, I had a remembrance of a saying that was hanging up on the wall when I was growing up as a kid. And I think my mom still has it hanging up in her house even now. But it's a quote: "Friendship multiplies our joys and divides our griefs." I think I will adjust that a little bit to say that meaningful connection and the relationships that we make in meaningful connection multiply our joys and divide our griefs or our sorrows. It's all over the news today where we're hearing about the loneliness epidemic. In fact, one episode that I read today said that 1 in 4 Americans are experiencing significant loneliness. And this loneliness is not just one demographic. Every generation in the population is experiencing loneliness at least 20%. And it doesn't matter if it's an older generation or younger generation. Loneliness is impacting every generation, every socioeconomic group, and even men and women, and almost evenly. And really, in a nutshell, loneliness is the lack of meaningful connection. And I think the party tonight really illustrates what meaningful connection feels like. Even in the group where most of the people I'd never met before, by the end of the evening, I felt like I had been seen and understood and appreciated. And I felt like I had that same feeling towards everyone else that was there. And that is meaningful connection. Any of those women that I would run into at this point, I would have that connection point with. So when we think about how meaningful connection multiplies our joys, can you take a moment right now and think about an event or an occasion that you experienced that when you talk to other people about it, they were excited with you? Maybe it was a new job or being accepted into the school you applied to. Maybe it was losing a tooth as a kid or learning how to ride a bike. Maybe it was a proposal or maybe a retirement celebration. Across life, all of these exciting and fun moments, when we share them with other people, it doesn't lessen the excitement and it creates more excitement. More excitement in us and more excitement in the other person as they are happy with us for the joyful things in our lives. One of the things that I like to look at on YouTube are wedding dances. When at the reception you have the bridesmaids or the groomsmen or the father-daughter dance, mother-son dance, or the couple's first dance, where they have some choreographed dance and it's fun and everybody who's there is cheering and there's just this excitement in the moment. It's excitement over the wedding. It's excitement over just this opportunity to celebrate. And it multiplies the joy. And even those of us who watch later are enjoying it too. Whether we're laughing or just appreciating with a smile, it's contagious. Often it's easier to see the first part of the phrase, friendship or meaningful connection multiplies our joy. We can see it. I mean, it can multiply our joy to watch something that is funny or that's enjoyable, even if we're not connected to the person. The second part, the dividing our grief or dividing our sorrow, is actually more beautiful to me. When we're experiencing pain or frustration or confusion, being able to share that with someone else can actually help to lighten our load. Many times when I have had a client in therapy, I've heard the phrase, "I've never told anyone this before." And usually it's something painful or embarrassing that they've held on to and carried it by themselves. It's in that place of meaningful connection that my client has the opportunity to share the sorrow, the grief, the burden, and not have to carry it alone. To be in a therapy office, it can just be with a friend, or sometimes with a stranger. A few months ago, a sweet friend of mine passed away. And in the last few months, I've had multiple friends lose family members. There's nothing that can eliminate the pain of loss. But good friends and meaningful connection gives the opportunity for someone to stand beside you and help carry the burden. Almost like if you're carrying something heavy. Sometimes it's having someone to talk to. Sometimes it's having someone who's just being present with you in the room, on the phone, talking or not talking. Sometimes it's just sending a text that you remember. About 8 years ago, a little girl in our church who is close to the same age as my daughter died from a terrible accident. Her name was Lily. And at her funeral, they passed out rocks that were painted in a design that would remind us all of Lily. I still have that rock in my jewelry box. And I see it and think about her and pray for her family. Part of sharing in the grief, carrying the load with, is remembering. Being able to send a text and say to Lily's mom, "Hey, just want to let you know they saw the rock. Just want to let you know that I know it's her birthday. I remember going to see Lily as a dwarf in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe." Those types of things are part of carrying that load. Doesn't take away the grief, but it makes it more a shared experience instead of a lonely one. One of the things that comes from sharing our grief, sharing our sorrow, sharing our burden, is that other people can hear our story. They can be encouraged. It gives them the opportunity to see things in us that we can't see in the moment. And when we're on the other end, it gives us the opportunity to speak to the things that we see in the other person. To be able to see the strength and call it out. To be able to see the grace and to call it out. There were many stories shared tonight. And most of them were a mixture of The joy in my midlife career change came out of a really hard situation for me. I was learning how to be a single mom, trying to go back to school, and then learning how to be a counselor and learning to balance things that I'd never had to do before. But the threshold experience that I share was coming onto the other side of being in this role where I'm the helper. Because I'm the helper as a mom. I'm the helper as a counselor even. And doing something new for me was actually becoming a creator. Creating this podcast was a major threshold crossover for me, where I was putting something out into the world. It was a shift for me in how I was thinking. I still love helping, and really, this podcast is an overflowing of wanting to help others. It's helping others in a more proactive way instead of the more reactive way that I have in the past. Being able to share that with that group of women this evening allowed them to be able to see into my story, into my life. It allowed me to feel connection with them, as did them sharing their life with me. I am always going to remember this party. And I just want to say thanks, Lauren, for the invitation. Not just the invitation to the party, but the invitation into meaningful connection. I hope this has been an encouragement to you and just prompted you to pursue meaningful connection. Lauren's idea of finding a threshold moment might be something that you would want to talk to your friends or family about. I've mentioned to you before Heather Holleman's book, The 6 Conversations. And in that book, she has a list of 100 questions that are geared towards creating meaningful connection. I'm going to link for you in the show notes the web address to be able to see all 100 of her questions that are straight out of her book with information to purchase her book. I hope this has been an encouragement to you, and until next time, take care.
Thank you for joining me today. If this episode added kindling to your flame, please leave a review and pass it on to a friend who could use some encouragement. You can connect with me and find additional resources at leahlittlebrown.com. Now go forth and burn in all your brilliance.